hello, Transurfers and the Transurfing curious. And what do they call Goddard people? The Goddard curious? Goddard, Neville Goddard, the Neville Goddard freaks.
Goddard students, I guess. Just
Goddard students.
I think Neville, sometimes I hear Neville'ites.
Neville'ites, oh, that's cool. I like that one. Well, welcome, whoever you are and however you are finding this podcast. I am with Jerry Emeka. He is in our Transurfing Facebook group, the International Transurfing Institute Facebook group. And he's not too big of a member because he's kind of got his own thing going on, more focused around Neville Goddard. But I do like to tune into his stuff. Your stuff's awesome, Jerry. Your last live was lit, especially with that person like trolling you as you were talking. That was amazing. It was like so entertaining. But I thought that I would hold this podcast for TransurfingTV, and we would talk about some of the same topics that Jerry was discussing that I felt really do parallel a lot of the reality transurfing concepts. And yeah, just kind of have a natural, organic conversation and see where it goes, see what happens, and maybe connect anyone out there that is in need of connecting with some new insight. Maybe you'll get a little bit here. So thank you for being here, Jerry. I'm happy to have you on my show. This is the first time doing a podcast in like, I don't know, I think since we did that one on racism, 6 months, got to be longer than 6 months ago. When did that happen? I think that was one of my last ones.
That was really one of your last ones?
Yes.
Wow.
I took
That's amazing.
I know, crazy. I think I did that one with you, and I did like one or two other little collaborations with some other transurfers, and then that was done. My sister had just really gone into her chemo treatments, and I was just keeping up with my other regular sort of role with my content, and the podcast kind of fell to the wayside. So this is my first time back, and yeah, it's been a while. I mean, it's probably been 6-8 months, maybe. Got it.
Has
it been that long?
Phone, I think so. That would have been June. I was just having a conversation about that time period. Literally just having a conversation about that time period earlier today. Yeah, that would have been June of last year. So I think the math comes out to 6 months or so.
Wow,
yeah,
crazy. Yeah,
that's
definitely has taken on its own a new form at this point. I don't even know what the hell's going on half the time.
But hey, we're as metaphysicians, it's our projection. So however we want to deal with the time is how it is. And I try not to let the time get to me, like, oh, how fast is time going? In fact, I actually enjoy finding out that time has flown by and I haven't been doing things, because if I look back, I'm like, I was really thriving through all that, even through the ups and downs, whatever roller coasters, like your sister with her chemo and all that stuff. Yeah, our lives kind of move forward, don't they? And if you're really living in your truth, living and creating the things that you want, does time really matter?
Yeah.
So.
Well, there's two ways of looking at it, I think. I think that there's definitely the way that you're talking about it when you're creating and you're thriving and you're living and you're not thinking about time, and then sort of like coming to and be like, wow, a year just passed. But then there's this other theory that I have, that people that remain asleep and they're not creating, they're not living their potential, and they're just sort of like existing. That's another one where they kind of wake up like years later and they're like, damn, how many years have passed? Oh, 5 years have passed since I turned this age, or there's like some kind of benchmark and it all seems a blur. I think that's sort of what happens with people that are in sleepy mode.
Yeah, that's also true. So yeah, good call out there. Yeah, that's that's very true. Man, today's Thursday. Whenever this goes up, y'all should know today is a Thursday, and I found myself being like, what? Wait, where'd the week go? And I'm like, man, yeah. It seems like a lot of my weeks have been turning into days. I don't know if you're getting that feeling where it's like,
oh. I know. I know.
You
Well,
know?
what's been helping me a lot, like tremendously, is I do this thing called a goals and doors book. And what it is I put my goals every year. I do one. I put my goals for the year on the front of the book. And then every single day I write out all of the things. Well, first of all, I put what my weekly goals are. So whatever weekly goals I have, I keep those on the front page. And then each day, whatever tasks I can do that are in line with those goals, I write them down. Like whatever, you know, if it's scheduling a podcast or being on somebody's podcast, contact Arabic trainers about something, talk with the SEO girl, mail the stickers out, you know, whatever it is. And then the next day, any of them that I don't have done, they get carried over and then new ones get added. And this really helps me to stay in line with what my intentions are, what my goals are, and the action that I'm taking. And even if one of those, you know, times kind of happens where I feel like, wow, that week just flew by, I can look and be like, wow, well, it flew by and I got a shit ton of stuff done. You know, like I can actually see that I got it done. And this helps me to feel like my time didn't just, it's in just physical reality. Yeah, it's in physical reality that I got that stuff done. And it helps me really feel a sense of power. And then if I stay on it, it's like the momentum just builds and builds and builds and builds. And before I know it, I can knock out like an entire day of stuff, just blast through and get a bunch of stuff done. And like all stuff for the future, right? Like film a bunch of things and make a bunch of things and create a bunch of content that's all going to like pay me off in the future. So it's like exactly what Vadim Zeland says, creating your reality in the moment rather than trying to alter reality in that current frame. You're doing what you can now. So those later frames are going to be showing you the reality of your choosing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, totally makes sense. It's, you know, the progressive movements towards the ideal goal, right? Something along those lines. So, but if you're not keeping track of it, you don't know if you're off track, on track, you know, through track, whatever track, right? So yeah, exactly. It gives you something to you know, look upon. And you know, in the Neville world, we have a technique called revision, which is something we're supposed to do at the end of every day, is observe our whole day, looking back on it and seeing what happened in that day. And if it was something that you didn't like, if something bad happened or something you didn't like, you look at it and ask yourself, well, what would I have wanted to have happened? And then imagine that it did happen the way you wanted it. That way you stop it in its tracks and it won't progress into the future. And then anything that did go good, you imagine it went better than it did. That way, again, you can put that into the future. So you're always pushing forward positivity and knowing that you already are that person. So this kind of goes in line with that. I might put this to practice, like this goal setting thing. That way I can actually observe what it is that I did those days and adjust and tweak and revise what it is that I did that day. I've set up like journals and stuff like that before, but I never seem to stick with it for whatever reason. I'm still such an artist that I know what it is that I want to do every day for the most part, that I don't really journal that type of stuff. But I totally see the benefit of what you are doing, because there are times when I do feel like, am I actually doing anything? Or am I just doing stuff, you know?
So, am I just being reactive? Am I just being reactive to my environment, or am I creating? That's kind of where this book helps me. I'm with you though, like journaling or writing in a diary. I've probably tried that 100 different times and failed. Like I just can't get into doing something like each night. That kind of seems like, why? like why write in a diary each night? Like, what is that? So I can look back on it and look back on my, like it doesn't seem like there's enough payoff there. But with this book is, I'm already a list person. Like if I don't have the book with me, let's say that I travel somewhere and I don't bring the book, I'll wake up in the morning and I'll write like a list on a piece of paper, and then I'll go about like, and even the list could just be like, call grandma, or make sure you touch base with so-and-so, like maybe not even necessarily business stuff, but like just stuff. So I know, like, I don't let anything get away from me to the point where then it becomes something later down the line where it is going to cause me to react. So really what I'm attempting at doing is completely severing my connection with being in that state of reacting to external events. Because if I'm reacting, then I'm getting immersed in what we call the outer screen, which is the external. I get immersed into the outer screen, and reacting, it's like a weird, if you react once, then it's just your reality is going to exponentially call for more ways for you to react. That's why people whose lives are a mess, they're just constantly reacting. This fucked up thing happened, so they react to it. And then another 2 fucked up things happen, and then they react to those. And it's just kind of like a snowball of connecting to your reality via this like reactionary mode. And this is, in my opinion, the antithesis of creation. So as long as I can stay out of reactive mode or reactionary mode, then I'm in my optimal state, my ability to create, and just stay in line with that. And it has been tremendously helpful. I mean, it really has been. It's been amazing.
I can totally see that. What's coming up for me is the idea that you're always thinking ahead of your evidence. And if that's the case, why wouldn't you, the first thing in the morning, dictate what it is that you want to do that day? That way, if anything does come up, you're not going to be reactive, rather you'll be responsive. So, there are going to be things that you're not expecting or you didn't anticipate and things like that. But if you have if you're a future caster, if you will, a lot of people in the Neville community, we practice thinking ahead of our evidence. So we actually put ourselves at the end of our day, at the beginning of our day. Oh, today was a wonderful day. You get that feeling, you evoke that feeling, and then our task is literally to observe as we walk that bridge of incidents from where you are in that bed to where you're going to be at night in bed. And your task for the day is to just observe, am I living up to having a wonderful day? So I mean, part of that would be imagining what are the things I'm going to do today. I mean, I know that every day I'm going to eat breakfast, I'm going to have lunch, I'm going to have dinner, I'm going to spend time with my son, my wife, and then what am I going to do on the other times that those things aren't happening? And I let those things happen. It lets my life be there's less stress when I operate from thinking from the end. What's the end going to look like? How am I going to feel this day? Okay, what's going to happen? And then I work backwards. What are the things that need to happen in order for me to feel that way? And then I'm less reactive and more responsive,
Yes.
So
absolutely.
it's cool.
We have something in transurfing called transfer chains, which is essentially, so many people become fixated on the end goal or the end frame, or in your scenario, the end of the day. Like they become so fixated on that end result that they forget that there's all that space in between point A and point B. Essentially, people become fixated on point B. And in transurfing, the use of transfer chains, it means that like there's a chain link going from the moment that you are currently in to that end frame. And you can get there simply by following the links. And what the links are is whatever the task is at hand that you know to do in that moment. You do that to the best of your ability until the next one presents itself to you. And then you do that one to the best of your ability, perfect it, finish it, whatever. And then you go to the next. And then before you know it, you're at the goal and you just kind of like pulled yourself there, right? Rather than freaking out at what, like, you know, and this is usually used with bigger goals, like becoming something or doing something big. But even in the small things, a lot of times I think people just get so frustrated with trying to figure out and understand how they're going to get from point A to point B. But with reality transurfing, like, you don't really have to figure that out. You just have to worry about the first link.
Right.
And then after you, then the second link comes. And then, and if it doesn't, then you just sort of keep the intention there, and it will surely present itself. Yeah. Then you move on to the second link, then the third link, then the fourth link, then you're there.
It's so interesting because all I'm or what's coming up for me is this, like, well, isn't the second link always going to show up? Like, you might think it's not the second link, but the next moment is the second link, is it not? You know what I mean? Like, you do a thing, and then you said that, oh, and then the second thing doesn't show up. I'm like, well, the thing that didn't show up is what showed up. Nothing showed up, right? So, you know, and that's what Neville calls the bridge of incident. You will walk a bridge of incident that will get you to the end goal. As long as you hold, you don't try to figure out the how is it going to happen. You know that it's already done. It's already been created, and you are walking a bridge to get you there. So yes, you're going to take actions. You're going to have conversations. You're going to say the things that you need to say. But if you're ever in this place of like, it didn't show up, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Well, actually, perhaps you're not supposed to do anything. You know, maybe you are supposed to just sit there and knit, you know, and
totally.
And wait. You get it? So
totally.
It takes the force out of it.
Yeah. And I think for me, this has been, you know, I definitely wouldn't say that patience is a virtue that I hold. I've always been kind of like, when I was young, when I was in my 20s, a boyfriend's mom used to call me instant gratification girl, because I just loved like instant stuff, you know. I was just very like about the moment. And if I didn't see what I wanted to see in that moment show up, I would get frustrated. And like, I was very instant gratification geared. And with reality transurfing, like, I really have found so much power in being able to hold the intention and wait for the right time. Drop the importance. Absolutely. Drop the importance. And, you know, in the beginning of doing what I'm doing now with transurfing, there was a lot of, you know, I couldn't get on a podcast to save my life. You know, now I've got so many podcasts, I've got to turn them down. In the beginning, I couldn't get on a podcast to save my life. Nobody knew who I was. I didn't have a lot of followers. I didn't have a lot of stuff going on. And for a brief time, I was doing this thing where I was like, I want it now, but I want it now, but I want to go now. I want to be active now. And finally, I was just like, whoa, you're actually taking this stance in this thing that's showing you that in doing actions, just like you're doing, nothing will be produced. Like, chill the fuck out and wait until the thing happens, right? So I backed up off of it, and I still held the intention. It wasn't like I gave up on it, but I diverted my attention to one of my other businesses, whatever else I do. And then sure enough, somebody calls me and is like, hey, you want to go on a podcast? And then it starts. But the intention's still there. I didn't just throw it in the fire and burn it because it didn't happen in my time frame, which is what a lot of people, I think, do, right? It's just like, either it's going in my time frame or it's not. If it's not, I'm going to burn it. And then the whole thing's lost. And that's how people pretty frequently give up. So yeah, it's just about being able to be patient, knit, do whatever, like chill, because it will come. It absolutely will come. Yeah.
This totally wraps to why we decided to do this podcast in the first place, which is about persistence, right? And what it means to actually persist in the knowing that your desire is already done. And which is what I talked about. You said that podcast was, or the presentation that I gave was fire. Thank you very much.
It was awesome. You nailed it.
Thank you. I'm having a lot of fun doing that. Like you, I'm fairly new. Well, like you, when you started, I'm new now in trying to present these ideas and these concepts to people. Even though I've been practicing them for a long while, I've kind of been trying to figure out what's a fun way for me to teach these things. So I'm not necessarily trying to be different, but what just is fun for me? What makes this fun so I can get it out there and not be so, academic about it and all this stuff, and make it fun for people to maybe think about things different. And so, yeah, like you, I found myself in this place of like, I'm not doing anything. I'm not doing enough. I need to do more. I need to do, and it was just force.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And then I talked to a friend who said, well, Jerry, what do you like? I was like, and I really just sat with that for a while, and I was like, I don't know. I like music, but how am I going to use music to, like, how can I teach with music? And I was like, that's a dumb statement, because Jerry, you've had this idea that pop music and hip hop and all this stuff says the same message. And every time you point it out to people are like, I've never thought of it that way. So like, why don't you just do that? And so I started doing it. And at first there was no traction behind it. And then, yeah, I think like last week or so, I was really getting in the groove. And then I saw you on one of them in the chat. I was like, oh, Renee Garcia is on here. I made it. So yeah.
No, seriously, anytime I see your thing, I'm like, oh, cool, Jerry's doing something. I rarely look at anybody's stuff. Yeah, but you've definitely got a glow about you, that you're tapped into some sort of heart and mind coherence. Coherence. There you go. Coherence. Thank you. My brain. But yeah, you can definitely see that, like, you're onto something for sure, right? Your state of being is magnetic.
Oh, thanks. I don't know. I love this work. I love teaching, and I love people. I love seeing the spark, and unfortunately, I can't see the spark go off in people's eyes. But I love seeing people get that aha moment, even if it's just for a fleeting moment. And before I was teaching publicly, I would just run into people on the streets, and for whatever reason, they would tell me their whole life story, and I'd be like, well, hold on there. Think about life this way. And they were like, what? And so I've always been this type of person. I think you've even shared that you kind of always have been a transurfer. I've always been someone who lives in my imagination. I just never had the words or the knowledge. I shouldn't say knowledge, but the way to articulate what it was until I discovered Neville Goddard. I was like, oh, that's what I've been doing this whole time. I just didn't realize it, right? And once I realized it, it made it a lot easier, because then I stopped thinking I was like the stranger or strange person who was just lolly-dollying around the world and all this stuff. And it was like, oh, there's actually a reason why I have been this way. And so yeah, I mean, now I'm teaching, but I've always taught this way, is my point. It's So when you say that, you know, there's a glowing aspect, or it's flowing, or what, I've always been this way. So it's just now I'm finally embracing it. So perhaps that's what you're seeing is you know, me finally accepting that this is who I am, type of thing. Yeah. So
you're figuring out how to make it work for you in everyday life in a way that helps you to live the reality that you want to live, right? I mean, that's kind of what it boils down to. I think it's the same for me. That's why I can sense what you're talking about. I mean, I never saw myself as being a teacher, or somebody the other day referred to me as a thought leader. And I was like, whoa, that's so weird.
Yeah.
So tricky.
No, I've never seen myself as like, as a public speaker. I mean, I've had ideas. It's like, man, I would love to do that, but I never actually believed that I could do that, if that makes any sense.
Yep, so, totally makes sense to me.
Yeah, because people would always, people would reach out to me and say, hey, I need help, or, oh, Jerry, you seem, you always have the right words to say. And, you know, that was fairly typical, but I never thought that that's what I'm supposed to do. Until, I don't know, a couple years ago, I started really getting that call inside of me saying, do this. And I would say, no, that's dumb. That's crazy. You know, I need to get, you know, live a normal life, go and get that corporate job that everybody's been telling you to get for thousands of years. Do that. Stop playing in La La Land. And, you know, the whole public speaking thing is for like the Tony Robbins of the world. Yeah, it's other people's thing. And then I realized
somebody actually referred to me as the next Tony Robbins the other day. I was like, what? Are you out of your freaking mind? I'm like, yeah. Come on.
Someone called me Tony Robbins, and I got offended. I was like,
that's funny.
I don't want to be. Yeah, and I realize it's because it's an aspect of yourself or myself that I just, you know, I keep stuff down. But and saying, it sounds like that you've experienced the same thing. Anyways, we're talking about ourselves. We're trying to teach people here.
Okay, so that will definitely help me to act, like it'll flow right into what I wanted to talk to you about. Is the other day you were talking about consistency, and I don't think you use this term, but something about holding the state of being, right? Like really, really feeling what it is you want, or who it is you want to be, or what it is you want to have, or whatever it is. And doing this consistently, and it doesn't mean that you are like, okay, it's noon, I got to think about this person I want to be. Okay, it's 12:30, I got to think about this person I want to be. It's more about becoming that version of yourself in your mind and really maximizing that effect internally first, and being consistent in really immersing knowing and immersing yourself in that state of being. So, and this even comes back around to what we were initially talking about with not having to figure out all the steps in between point A and point B. The more you immerse yourself, the more you immerse in that knowingness of that version of you exists, that version of reality exists. All you have to do is hold that state of being consistently, and those links in that transfer chain, or the frames in the film roll, if you're looking at it from the Tufte perspective, with that end frame, or the bridge
in the Neville existence. Yeah,
exactly. All you have to do is hold that state of being, hold and really immerse yourself in the truth that already exists, it's already happening, it's already you. And then you will attract to you, and this is where law of attraction comes in, then you will attract to you all the things you need to implement, to facilitate that convergence to that version of you, to that thing that you want to do or be, or what you want to have, or whatever it is. But it starts with that feeling inside. And if you just lie to yourself, you know, if you're like, oh, 1 o'clock, I'm going to think about it. I have a lot of people that ask me or say to me, because in transurfing, we have this idea, this concept called the slide. And the slide is running your visualization in your mind that you already are there, right? You're already that person. You're already experiencing that version of reality. And it's in the frequency that you hit, and obviously your thoughts and your actions performed through this slide. It's essentially you living in a version of reality prematurely. This is how you create your own reality. And the more systematic you can become in running your slide, the more the slide will materialize in reality. Yeah. But a lot of people contact me and they're like, how often do I have to run my slide? And I get really tired of running my slide. I don't want to run my slide. It seems like a chore, blah, blah, blah. And here's the thing. If running a slide for you is a chore, or if you're having to set an alarm clock to wake you up every time you need to run your slide, then that slide probably isn't that slide, whatever it consists of, it's probably not something that's intended for you. Because if it's intended for you and you really, really want this thing, or you really want to be this person, or you really want to do this thing, it's absolutely not going to be a chore. It's going to be the opposite. And when people say, well, how long do you run your slides for? I'm like, I'm living in my slide 24/7. I'm not just running it.
You're living it now.
I'm living it now. I'm living it now. Exactly.
Yeah.
So
I'd say the simplest way I would say it would go like this. And it's an assumption, though false, if persisted in, will harden into fact. So, you know, the slide that you're playing or the scene that you have evokes a feeling within you that it's already done. And if you have that feeling, you can go about your business knowing that you are that person. You know, the idea that you need to set an alarm to make sure that I've done my scene or I've done my slide and all this stuff is like, that's actually proof that you're not living it. Because if you were the person that you decided to be, like, let's say it materializes right now, and you actually think about it, you wouldn't be setting an alarm to make sure that you are that person. You know what I mean? So it's like
totally
just the act of doing those type of things, and oh, am I doing it right? And is it on time? And oh no, I did it 5 minutes after the hour as opposed to on the hour. You know, type of things. I'm like, as I'm talking to you now, I fucked up. As I'm talking to you now, you know, I'm thinking about, you know, my states of being. As I'm talking to you, I'm still here with you in the 3D reality, and I'm like, oh, right. Who am I right now? Oh, okay, cool. Okay, I'm great. And if I'm not, I'm like, oh, yeah, I am. It literally is just just start noticing, am I being this person or am I being my old self? You know, no longer the old man, now the new man. You know, Neville quotes the Bible all the time. I'm studying the Bible myself. And there's the story of Lot. And Lot was told to go to the mountaintop with his family, and his wife turned back and turned into a pillar of salt. And that's that idea. It's like, don't turn back to your old self, because you're going to preserve that state. And you want to be in this new state, or you want to be in this new slide, then be in the new slide. Stop backtracking. and wondering if you know if you are or aren't. And you don't need an alarm to tell you if you are or aren't. Anytime you have the thought, ask yourself, oh, am I being this person? And if not, be it now. You know, you don't need the physical world to prove to you whether you are somebody or not. And this is where persistence comes in. The more you persist in the knowing that you are this person, it will, like we were just talking about, 6 months went by and we're just like, wow, that happened. It happens, without thinking about it. Well, I mean, obviously you're thinking about it, but you're not thinking about it. You're not forcing it to be. You already are it. Another thing to think about, and you brought up creation, is like, creation's already finished. You just choose who it is that you want to be and step into that frame. Once you choose, you're on the timeline. You don't need to backtrack and wonder if you're not. You already made the decision. Now stick with it.
That's why choosing is, it's so valuable. Choosing without choice, you aren't on that line, and you never will be. You never will be, ever. The thing isn't going to find you. You're going to navigate yourself to the thing, but the first step is obviously the choice. And then like you said, you're on that timeline then.
Yeah, you're given choose ye this day. So it's like, it's always this day. So choose this day. If you don't like what it is that you see, choose again. It's always choice. It's always choice. That moment of being where you're like, okay, well, I've done this thing and I'm waiting for the next chain. I was like, well, choose this moment that this is the next chain. Choose, just choose it. Oh, but it's not. It was like, who says it's not? Only you're the one who's saying it's not, right? So it's I'm trying to get to a place, Renee, where I'm trying to simplify it so much to where I can easily just say yes, boom. Like right now I'm working with a guy named Lyndall Warden, who's amazing. He was a student of Neville's back in the day. He's like 85 years old. This guy is just the sweetest man in the world. And anytime I call him when I'm in doubt, and I get doubt, so like I'm completely candid right here. I find myself in doubt often, not often, but I find myself in doubt. And sometimes I'll give him a call. I was like, Lyndall, I'm not seeing it, man. He's just like, he'll straight up just say, well, what are you thinking? That's all he'll tell me.
Oh my God. My God. That is so good. That is so good.
Simple.
And I've actually, this is part of the reason why I don't do one-on-one coaching anymore, is because usually the people that would come to me would be in crisis mode of some kind, some massive divorce, somebody lost a kid, big, heavy stuff, or people that were just chronic worriers and overthinkers.
They want somebody to do it for them.
Want somebody to do it for them. Absolutely. And I would, pump them up, and, especially the overthinkers and the over warriors, I would get them really feeling good and positive energy going and help them realign themselves to, there's a higher version of you that doesn't suffer from these challenges, and really get them to a place where they were doing well by the end of the call. Then a week later, I'd log on and I'd see a completely different person. I'd see that person that came to me originally. And I'm like, what happened? And they're like, oh, well, this thing happened and that thing happened and this thing went to hell. And I'm like, you do realize you're doing this to yourself, right? And saying that to someone that's not ready to hear that. So many people, and this gets to a topic that I've been talking a lot about lately, and that is the idea that when you want something in life, even if it is just a different state of being, the quickest way to not get it, whatever it is you want, the quickest way to not get it and to prove reality is not going to give it to you and to be unsatisfied is to continue looking to reality and continue looking to the mirror to show you a different image. That image, what you're seeing, reality, is simply a reflection of your state of being, your thoughts, your internal processes, your beliefs, your attitudes about life. That is it. That's all you're seeing. So if you're like you said, and I love your story. So what are your thoughts? That's exactly it. That's exactly it. It hits the nail on the head. It is the essence of exactly what reality transurfing is. What are your thoughts? Because if your thoughts are shitty, that you can't do it, that it's for everybody else, like what you were saying with the Tony Robbins thing. Oh, that's for other people. You know, I've had a lot of that myself, thinking like, oh, well, these things are just for other people, until I really started getting into the stuff. And then I realized that's really bullshit. It's not for other people. It's for me. Other people may be a few steps ahead of me, but I'm on that timeline just the same as them, right? There is no anything's reserved exclusively for somebody else and not for me. So it really does boil down to, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts?
So sorry. I'm just checking my battery right now because it's been freaking out on. Oh yeah. Okay. So I got a little bit of battery. I apologize. I should have charged my phone.
Okay. No worries. We'll probably go for another 5 minutes and quit.
Oh, perfect. I think that's plenty of time. Or I have plenty of juice, I should say. Yeah, man. I you know, and so I brought up my conversations with Lyndall, and yeah, pretty much that's it. Like, I know, see, I call him, or I call any of my Neville friends, knowing that I already know what they're going to say. Like, I never call them with this like, woe is me, and then I have to belabor the point. It's just there's the thing in me that's just like, obviously I'm not helping myself. Let me go and hit somebody up that I know is going to slam the door in my face. You know, it's just like, it's going to like, get out of there. You know what I mean? Yeah. Even though I know what they're going to do, I'm still in a place where I'm like, all right, I need to talk to somebody. Right. So, so when I call Lyndall, you know, on the rare occasions that I do, it's very much just sweetest old man. And he'll just laugh at me and he'll just say, well, what are you thinking?
Yeah.
He'll literally laugh at me. And the thing is, and he'll say this too, it's like, most people don't want to hear that. Most people don't want to hear that. In fact, he'll say he's like you, where he was at a point where he was teaching and he was coaching a lot of people, and then he just got to a place where he couldn't take it anymore because people didn't truly want to hear the truth. And so he has this one quote that he'll say, "I'm not looking for fans, I'm looking for teachers." And what that means to me is there are a lot of people out there that are just looking for followings, and they're just looking for that validation that they're awesome and good people, when in actuality, if you were truly about this type of work, and Vadim is the perfect example. He actually doesn't want a following. He just wants you to know and get out of his face. You know what I mean? Yeah, he just wants you to know this. It's not about him. It's not about Renee. It's not about Jerry. It's about you understanding the truth of who you are and how powerful you are. And once you understand how powerful you are, and you persist in the knowing that you are one with all that is, you won't waste your time trying to point your finger at them and blaming them or blaming that or blaming whatever for your circumstances of your life. You're not going to go and look at your mirror and say, "Mirror, change. Mirror, why aren't you changing?" You'll you'll get to the place where it's like, oh, it's me. The way I like to say it is like, don't don't try to comb the hair of the mirror, comb your hair first.
Yeah. You are the problem and you're the solution.
Exactly.
And it's so true what you're telling about your friend saying, what are you thinking? It reminds me of my grandma once. I was up at her house and I started freaking out about something. I can't remember what was happening. I was, concerned about something. I was getting all worked up, and she says, "Now, Renee, are you practicing your transurfing right
now?" Like, shut
I'm
up.
like, oh
what
my
do you
God.
know about
I'm like,
what do you know about transurfing?
I'm like, oh my God, I'm getting transurfing schooled by my grandma. She goes, "Just remember you're transurfing right now, Renee."
Yep. Yeah, my wife is essentially the same thing. She says the same. So I was like, well, what would Neville say about this? I'm like, God, get out of my face, woman.
I know it is. And the funny thing is, and this is a really excellent point, and we'll talk on this before we wrap up, but a friend of mine last night, he was saying, he helps me with some of my security stuff. He's like, "Hey, you need to dial in, your security on this side. You got to do this." And I said to him, "This is wild that I have to actually be concerned with people trying to hack my stuff in the self-development, self-improvement genre, And he's like, "Well, I used to be in this martial arts group, and all these really experienced, like the top guys, the black belts, the teachers, the instructors, they used to do all this really horrible stuff to each other competitively, like try to get each other's businesses shut down and call Better Business Bureau and sleep with each other's girlfriends and do all this crazy stuff to mess with each other." And he's like, "Aren't these people supposed to be about enlightenment?" And it's so true that it doesn't matter how evolved or how woke you are still at the mercy to your human nature. And human nature, there is absolutely a shadow side. People come to me thinking that I've got this whole thing figured out and I'm perfect. There's times where I'm freaking out in my kitchen saying some bullshit to my boyfriend, and he's like, "Dude, check yourself. Look at how you're acting right now." Right. And this is the thing. This is how it pertains to reality creation. If you think that you need to wait to get all of your stuff, all of those dirty parts of yourself, shadowy parts, the parts that are dysfunctional, the parts that are competitive, the parts that are defiant or have friction with other people in your environment, all those gross little parts, perceived gross little parts about yourself. If you think you need to fix all of that stuff first and then you can start creating your own reality, you're never going to get to creating your own reality. You won't, because it's never going to, those things are always going to, you can work with them, you can polish them down, you can refine them, you can start to view them as positives and use them to your benefit. But we are all capable of that stuff, no matter how much you understand and know Neville and all the things that you practice. Still going to have moments. I'm still going to have moments. I'm sure Vadim can be a shit to his wife.
Yeah.
Neville,
Neville,
what it is.
Yeah, Neville has said he's like, "Oh yeah, I imagine a miss all the time." Like he's a teacher. That's all you, me, Neville, Tony Robbins. We're teachers of what we understand. Doesn't mean that we're perfect. It means that we're human, that understand a level of consciousness that most people don't have access to. That's it. And and we use these same things that we're teaching you to solve what we want to solve or create what it is that we want to create. And yeah, we fall, and yeah, we have to go into our journal and be like, well, to see what it is that we're thinking, or and those kind of things. So hey, I wanted to make sure that we don't get cut off. I wanted to make sure that we don't get cut off because it would be weird for production value.
It just goes black.
Yeah, exactly. So Gosh, I love talking to you. And so,
let's do it again. We'll do it again. Where can people find
Mhm.
you that are watching the podcast, Jerry?
They can find me on Instagram at NYC_mouse, NYC_mouse. And there's a link tree with all the pertinent links. I have my Imaginarium group link is in there. You can even find my personal Facebook page. I'm crazy, so I'll let anybody be friends with me on Facebook. and I also have my 90-day course. If you're interested in spending 90 days with me, it's I have like a 5 to 10 minute dailies that I run with you. And but yeah, that's the best way to get in contact with me.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, everybody check Jerry out. Jerry, I hope maybe we can make this like a thing if you want to.
I'd love to.
At least to get the basics of Neville compared to Vadim, kind of get them, get them working together. So maybe we could bridge that gap between the communities a little bit and realize that we're all kind of talking about the same stuff, right?
Yeah, I would say so. I definitely find there's some things in reality transurfing that I'm like, this blew my mind. Pendulums to this day, it was a huge win for me when I discovered that last year, and I still apply that tool to this day, and it's huge. It's been a huge game changer for me. So yeah, there's definitely synergy for sure.
Awesome. Well, maybe that'll be the topic of our next discussion. Pendulums and pendulum management. All right, nice. Jerry. Well, thank you for coming on TransurfingTV, and I'll catch you on the World Wide Webs and Facebook. I'll tune into your next live because that was a lot of fun, and everybody definitely check out his lives. They're good. He drops it like it's hot.
They're a lot of fun. There's just, man, it's the info, like Renee said before, the information's out there. We're not saying anything new. We're just saying it the best way we know how. And so don't put Neville, don't put Vadim, don't put Renee, don't put Jerry on any pedestal. You already know this stuff. You already know it. So that's it.
That's it. That's where it's at. Well, thank you so much for coming on, and I look forward to our next chat, Jerry.
No doubt, Renee. Bye.
See ya. Bye.